my name is Katie, and in today's video we are going to make this dress with the help of the Molly Monster, who just wants to be in the shop for some reason. So this dress kept popping up on Pinterest for me, and it's got the ruffles and it's got the butterfly or tulip sleeve as I call it, and I was like, oh, it's everywhere and it's so cute on all these models, and I was like, I just want to make this dress. And I was really inspired by this dress, so I wanted to see if I could recreate my own by using a thrifted piece. So let's get started. Here is my before dress, which I had bought for one of my friends, and I thought this pattern was absolutely fabulous, but my friend didn't want it, so I was like, yes, I get to chop up this dress. I'm so excited. So I'm going to start by cutting off the collar because honestly, I just don't need the collar. So the collar is going to go first. And then I'm going to start deconstructing this dress. So I'm going to cut the top front and top back from each other and also from the sides. So now here is my new back piece, which I'm actually going to turn around and use as the front of the dress. When you turn a garment around from the front to the back, you'll note that the back is actually higher than the front normally is. So you're going to have to take that down a little bit so that you're not just choking yourself all day long. And then I'm going to mark across where I want the first ruffle to be. I'm going to fold the back, which is now the front, in half, and I'm going to take a little bit off. That way I will not be strangling the entire day. Next, where the pin is placed, I'm going to cut straight across, and this is going to be the top ruffle of my dress. For the new back of the dress, which was the front before, I'm then going to take my new piece that's been measured out, and I'm going to use this as a guide to measure the back as well. With the remainder of the skirt, I'm going to hold it up to where that new cut line is, and as you can see, it's actually the perfect length for me because I'm super petite anyway, so I'm like, yes, this is a perfect length, good to go. And then in this part of the clip, it's very hard to tell, but there were actually pockets sewn in this dress, so I was trying to save the pocket by seam ripping it out. For the portion of the dress that was the front, it had a huge seam of buttons on it, so I'm actually just going to cut this entire thing of buttons off completely, and then I'm going to cut all the buttons off and put them in my button jar for another project later. With the remainder of the material, I'm actually going to cut it into 9-inch sections so that I can make giant ruffles all the way down my dress. And I'm doing my favorite technique here, which is where you measure 9 down and then you fold the material over and you just keep going around. This also works really well because this material had a slight curve to it, which is going to make your ruffles look better in the final product. And here's a wide angle shot of what it looks like when I was cutting the ruffles all the way across. You can also note my giant head because I'm totally aware of where the camera is when I do these tutorials. Now I'm going to lay those two front pieces that had the buttons down the front together, and I'm going to sew that opening closed so that way it is now one seamless piece on the back using a straight stitch. For the ruffles, you're going to adjust your stitch length to the longest setting. So I normally use like a 2 or a 2.5 in my sewing, but for this you're going to turn it all the way up to number 4, so that way you have nice big long stitches. Then you're going to straight stitch everything together using that long stitch, and make sure to leave a lot of extra room at the end because this is where you're going to take your top thread and you're going to start to pull it, and this is going to create the gathered / ruffled effect, and it's going to be really easy as long as you leave a lot of thread at the end. You're going to want to do the gathered technique on all 3 of the ruffles. Now I wanted my ruffles to be really big and extra, so I'm actually going to take apart most of the remaining pieces of the dress, pretty much anything I could get my hands on, to add extra length to each of the ruffles. So here is part of the top that I had cut free. I'm going to square this off to the same 9 inches, and then I'm going to add that on to one of the ruffles to give it more fullness. Here's what the first ruffle looks like pinned on to the top of the dress, and you'll see in the next clip I'm literally using as much of this dress as possible. Like I even took the collar apart and pulled out that kind of mesh that comes in between it because I was like, I'm using this material too. We're using all of it that is possible. Here's a pyramid of basically how much material I'm going to add extra to each of the ruffles. And then I'm going to use a straight stitch in a normal stitch length of about 2.5 on all of these to add them on. And once I have all the new add-ons, I'm then just going to take my iron and I'm going to make sure to iron everything looking nice and flat and crisp. Because I've added a bunch of material to the length of this ruffle, I'm actually going to start the ruffle in the middle of the front. That way I'm going to have the nicest part showing in the front, and that way I can also make sure that I have all of the ruffles correct. I did a little bit of gathering around the entire top of it, and so I'm just going to spread all of the gathers out as evenly as possible, and then I'm going to pin them on. Then I'm going to use a straight stitch to sew the ruffles to each other, and make sure, because your ruffle layer is gathered, to try not to pull on it too much, because you don't want to accidentally pull the gather out while you're pulling the garment. Now for the sleeves, the inspiration dresses had what I call like a tulip sleeve or a butterfly sleeve. It had this overlapping pattern, which I am just totally guessing on what the shape looks like, and I'm actually going to make 2 per side, so you're going to want to have 4 of these tulip shapes total, and I'm using some of the leftover scrap material to make these. And then after holding them up on my shoulder, I realized that the ends needed to be a little bit more curved, so I'm just taking both of these and I'm going to curve them out a little bit. Then I'm going to very carefully fold over the edges of this material, and it's kind of hard because of the way it's curved, so just go slowly, but you want to make sure that you're getting all of those raw edges tucked under. I used my serger on this, so I only have to go around it once, but if you don't have a serger, you have to go around it twice to make sure that they're all locked in place and it's not going to fray. Next, I'm going to take off the part of the sewing machine that pops in and out, so this way I can easily go around the sleeve of the dress and make sure that all of those raw edges are tucked under so that nothing will fray as well. So at this point I had everything sewn together, and I try on the dress and whoo! These ruffles are way too big and kind of looked more ridiculous than needed. So I'm actually going to take just some elastic that I had around the house, and I'm going to sew the elastic to the ruffles to make this dress a little bit smaller. For the tutorial, I have a couple of things that I missed while filming because I accidentally moved the camera, so it was filming like my head instead of the actual sewing machine, and that is of the tulip sleeve. So basically when you're sewing this, I honestly just attach them like this, and they just attach straight to the sleeve in a tulipy way, if that makes any sense, but they're just attached like that. And I like that this gives it a little bit of an illusion of a sleeve, because I really do prefer dresses with sleeves, but a lot of times when you have sleeves, then your arms are restricted and you can't actually wave them and you're uncomfortable all day. So I like that this is a sleeve, even though it's not really a sleeve. And then the other thing that I wanted to note is that if I were remaking this dress again, I would have actually made the ruffles in each layer a little bit smaller, because you can see that they're really big and they don't necessarily give a ton of shape. So I probably would actually make them a little bit smaller. I would still make the layer at the bottom nice and big and fluffy, because that's fine when you're twirling, because you do definitely want to have a lot of flair to it, but you can see this middle layer just kind of looks like a giant cupcake on me. It's not necessarily the cutest thing ever. I would overall say that this technique will work, just maybe make sure that your proportions are correct. But this was my first time making this kind of dress, so I would still say that it was successful in that regard, but I would definitely make the 2 middle layers smaller, because they really didn't need all the poof. It's just the bottom layer that really needs the poof to have kind of the fun twirly flair. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a big thumbs up, or just give a big thumbs up because you like thumbsing up things. That seems like a fun thing to do today. If you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button down below, because I make tons and tons of DIY videos, and I love experimenting with trends that I've seen on Pinterest to see if it's possible to make your own using thrifted garments. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I will see you next time. Bye!